Okay. And pode começar.
All right, guys. So here we are doing our second live. And today, the topic we're going to talk and discuss about is water. The first topic we discussed was sleep. And so today we will talk about water, which is another really critical topic that comes up a lot in the clinic. And a lot of questions get asked about water, and it's something that we have discussions about every day with our patients to inform them about the importance of water. Humans are water-based. We're made up of water 75%, and most most of our organs are about between 70 to 85% made up of water, 90% made up of water. So it's really critical that we give it the nutrition that
So
that
let's
supports
just
them.
this is part of all the
Series.
this series that we're doing for our patients since beginning of lockdown. So you guys are welcome. Hi, Em. And as Andrew said, today we're going to talk about water and the importance of water. Because one of the biggest problems that we see, we are just letting you guys know that we're moving our eyes because we have four cameras in front of us because we don't know how to do that only in one computer. So we, what was I saying? That one of the main problems that we see it's people who comes to us and they don't drink enough water. They mostly dehydrated, and they feel a lot of joint pains or so many problems. Andrew, what you would say hormone problems are related to low water?
In relation to symptoms that people experience as a result of being underhydrated include things such as blood sugar issues is a really big one, and all symptoms related to that. Dizziness is another really common symptom we have of people coming in who are severely dehydrated, yet they're unaware of it. And if they've had an episode of dizziness, they're not sure, that they weren't even aware that they were underhydrated. Insomnia, obesity, energy issues, and pain syndrome. So that they're all really common things that people come in with when they're dehydrated or underhydrated. And there's a big difference between being dehydrated and underhydrated in terms of the volume that you're having on a daily basis. So in TBM, total body modification, one of the techniques that we use in the clinic, what's really important is making sure you're hitting the mark of how much of drinking the adequate amount of water. And there's a lot of confusion out there in the public about how much we should actually drink. And so the equation that we use in TBM is 1 litre per 23 kilos of body weight, approximately, or another way of calculating it is about 43.5 mils per kilo of body weight. So therefore, you're being very customized to yourself as to how much water you need to drink relative to just a generalized guideline that's put out there. So to ensure that you're getting the adequate water, that's a good starting point.
So drinking only water, is it enough to hydrate your body? So let's say that a person is really dehydrated for a while.
Yep.
And they started to drink water, but they don't feel the results straight away. Why would be that? And just drinking water is enough, or there's other things that can affect hydration in the body?
It's a good question, and it gets asked a lot. So to adequately hydrate, rather than having water with something added to it, we recommend that you just have pure water, whether that's plain water, filtered water, distilled water, but water without anything added to it, like lemon or cordial or something like that, because the water, our body works like a biocomputer. And so it is programmed to recognize water as just water by itself. So that's what we recommend to people, is that we just have pure water, ideally. Yeah, what were you going to say?
However,
So when we're talking about that volume of water per day, that's just including plain water. It's not including, half of it water and getting the other half from other, sources of fluids.
yes, but just the water. But okay, so we should drink water, plain water. Which kind? Let's talk about water then.
Okay.
Which kind of water we should drink?
Ideally, we want filtered water. That what you're
Why?
alluding to. Yeah. So in terms of the difference between regular tap water and filtered water, the benefits of drinking filtered water are that it's taking out toxins and poisons that may exist in the normal water supply that we're given through the tap. And also with the water filter systems these days, they're great at remineralizing the water, which a lot of that is lost through, the way that the processing is of normal town water. So that's a couple of really sort of basic reasons why we need to try and get the best quality water.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what do you think of spring water?
Well, spring water is ideal if we can get something from the source.
And make sure that the source
and
is
make sure
not
that the source isn't contaminated, obviously. Or even finding spring water and then filtering that as well. You're really covering both angles there. So the key is drinking plain water and then having the adequate amount of water, which we talked about, which was 1 litre per 23 kilos of body weight, or 43.5 mils per kilo. So if you write that down.
So it's 23 kilos, you drink 1 litre.
You drink 1 litre.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's keep like that.
Yeah. So for someone who's 70 kilos body weight, we're looking at about 3 litres minimum.
Yeah.
Now, for most of you, that sounds like a lot of water. And most people often ask the question, well, I don't drink nearly even a third of that or a quarter of that. How am I going to be able to function and not go to the toilet, 10 times a day? So that's a really good question. And I think you said before, how long does it take for the body to actually rehydrate?
Yeah, I do. Would you like you to use that analogy of the dry earth?
Yeah, so if you think about the earth that hasn't had rain penetrating it for a while and it's really dry, it takes a while for the water to actually absorb into that dry soil. So the initial water that's going to go on top of that dry soil will not soak straight in. It will run off. And so over time, though, it will start to absorb into the soil, and then the soil will actually be able to accept that water more freely through osmosis, and the body is the same. So it really does take some time for the body to rehydrate. Now, people who are receiving TBM and the protocols we use just in the basic exam, it takes about a month for the body.
People are receiving chiropractic
treatments in general. It takes about a month for the body to rehydrate if you're drinking that adequate quantity. However, otherwise, it's normally about 3 months.
Okay.
So it does take time.
So you talked about osmosis, and my understanding of osmosis is wherever we have, so we have a cell. The cell has a line, has like a wall that is permeable. That means water passes through. However, salt doesn't. So my understanding of osmosis is that the side of the cell that has more salt will suck more water. So for this to happen, do you think that is important, the intake of mineral salts, not with your water maybe, but in your diet?
Absolutely. So, it's really important to keep that water-salt balance right in the body. And so if we're drinking more water, it's important that we're also ingesting adequate amounts of good quality salt to ensure that the body can absorb the water, because this salt actually assists with the absorption of water. So that's another really good point that you make there.
Okay. And Andrew, I have a question. So a few years ago when you met me, I was really dehydrated and I didn't drink a lot of water. However, with the I started to drink water, and as you said, with like the soil, because it was so dry, it passed straight through. And with the adjustments that you gave to me, it started to absorb much faster.
Yep.
And then after a while, I stopped. I went to the bad habit of stopping drinking water again, and I noticed that when I came back to drink water, it was really difficult. Like, was the taste of the water was unpleasant. My body wouldn't take a lot. So what I've done, I started to add hydrolytes into my water in the first month, just after your adjustment. And I felt that helped me to get back to flow with the water. And then in less than a month, I could drink, the 3 liters of water or whatever my body required without having to add anything, just to that first start. Do you think that can be helpful for some?
Yeah, I think absolutely. In terms of what we just talked about there, with the body having the necessary minerals, and the most important one in relation to water being salt, if you're replenishing those mineral stores that are low in the body as well, then that will also help with that permeability through osmosis. So that's important. Secondly, a lot of people do complain about the taste of water and it not being something that they enjoy, and that's one of the main reasons they don't drink enough water. So I guess if you can bring some of those good habits into drinking water, if you can use something that's going to be helpful to link it to that habit of drinking water that encourages you to drink it to begin with, then I think it's a really good idea, especially something like an electrolyte supplement like you were talking about. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the other thing that I learned to drink more water was so when I was training with a personal trainer, she said something along those lines, that you put time to drink to have a drink. So there's apps nowadays, there's one app specifically that calls Drink Water, that you can set the times and they send you a reminder, and you can add how much you've been drinking during the day. So it's a tracking system. I tried that, didn't work for me, but I know people who works really well. And my personal trainer, what she said was always linked with something. So for example, she fills three big liters of water, 3 big water bottles that has a liter of water inside, and she drinks in her car. So she needs to drink 1 liter every time she's going from A to B on her car.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really good. So what I started to do, I drink 1 liter before breakfast, 1 liter before lunch, and then for me it's just more like 200 mils or 300 mils, and I'm sweet for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So I found that this link of like, okay, I need to have this liter of water until a certain time, or every time I sit on my desk, I drink 2 glasses of water, or now that is like 500 mils there, or every time I get my bag to go out, I need to drink that. I wouldn't recommend this one because then you might need to use the toilet in public. But every time, just link to something, to a clue. That's the clue to drink water.
Yeah, and just having that cue as well.
Thank you.
Having that cue is really important because most of us haven't been trained to be really good water drinkers. You need to do some things like that are just going to make it much easier for you to remember. I often tell patients to put an alarm on their phone. So, repeat daily alarm several times a day. So it's just that jogging their memory. Okay, here we go again. It's 11 a.m. I've got to have another 500 mils of water, or whatever it is that however you like to measure it out. A lot of people say they don't have enough time to drink enough water. And I think an easy solution for that is making sure that when you are drinking, that rather than just having a few small sips, that you actually have, a large quantity and large volume of water. And so the easiest way to do that is actually to drink standing, because when you're standing up, your stomach extends and it becomes much more elongated, and therefore the water travels and passes through the esophagus and through the the valves at the top of the stomach, the cardiac sphincter, much easier and faster. So therefore you can ingest the water a lot faster as well. So I often am sculling water during the day when I'm at work, because I'm at work all day standing. So I'm able to get through that water a lot easier because I'm sculling the water standing. And when you're sitting, your stomach is more compressed and collapsed, and therefore the water doesn't travel past and through the stomach and the esophagus as quickly. So that's another really good technique as well, especially once you start to absorb the water a bit better, and that water is actually sort of penetrating the cells of the body after a few weeks or a month. You won't be needing to run to the bathroom straight after doing that, because your body's actually absorbing and metabolizing and utilizing the water more effectively.
Okay, that's all good tips. And now, what water does to our body? Why that's so important? I know you said a bit on the beginning, but I want you to go a bit deeper on why water. Or we learned, that water is source of life. But for example, how long a body can go without food and how long a body can go without water? I think we had this conversation many years ago. Do you remember?
I do vaguely remember that.
But it was something shocking, like the body can go without water for like 2 days, while without food can go for like a month, or something along those lines.
There was a stark contrast between water and food, and often people have it round the other way, the importance they place on food versus water. Even people who have a really healthy diet, yet their water intake is really below where they need it to be. And so I guess this is a good answer to that question. Two really key systems in our body that contribute to being healthy. One, the cardiovascular system. So this is one I talk to patients a lot about, people particularly who have cardiovascular disease or symptoms or issues with those, is that if you think about it logically with water, it actually allows our blood, which is the thing that is the highest source of water amongst all organs and systems in the body, is the blood itself. I think it's about 89% water. So we need to actually keep our blood at a certain viscosity or thickness. And to ensure that happens, it's important and essential that we actually hydrate adequately. And so when you're reading through the literature when it comes to cardiovascular disease, one of the top two risk factors that doesn't get talked about a lot is actually dehydration. So if you're dehydrated, what happens then is the blood becomes more thick and more viscous, and therefore to get that blood around the circulatory system into the organs and to all the cells where necessary, the heart has to pump a lot harder to actually push that thicker, more viscous blood through the system. And so if we're dehydrated and over a long period of time, if our heart has to work a lot harder to pump that thicker blood around the body, then we're going to put that system under more strain. And so it can lead to potentially hypertension amongst other symptoms associated with the cardiovascular system. So, this is a nice, full, safe way to actually ensure that we have a healthier cardiovascular system, is by simply drinking more water. And when you tell people who have cardiovascular issues this sort of thing, then that's another massive incentive for them to create that really good habit. Another system that is really dependent upon good hydration and water is the digestive system. So it's well known through the ages that the digestive system of the gastrointestinal tract is like a river. And it's known to be, when in a healthy state, the river of life. And when it's not, and when things aren't flowing, as in what we see in the environment, when the river's starting to run slower or run dry, rather than it being a river that supplies all the systems around it, including nature and animals with life, it starts to become the river of death, where if we don't have the water, then all those things around that source of water either die or they go looking elsewhere for water. So that's
what happens then on the intestine? Basically, the toxins starts to get out of the intestine because they cannot be flushed and go into the cells in the body and accumulating and causing all sorts of inflammations and eventually major problems as well.
Absolutely. And what also happens in the digestive system is that we have all these little pockets and pouches in the large intestine, for example. And so if you think about it, if we're not getting good flow through that tract, things can accumulate in these pockets or on the walls of the bowel. So, it's really important that we start to hydrate effectively to ensure that happens. And what I've noticed over the years with lots of patients who start to actually hydrate properly, their body's starting to do that effectively, is their bowel function improves markedly. And it's not uncommon to see someone going from being severely constipated to then having normal bowel function by purely us addressing their water circuits and actually the person starting to drink water adequately,
Mm. Wow.
without changing any other variables. So I've always found that to be quite remarkable. The digestive system, the cardiovascular system, super essential for hydration. Another one that I wanted to mention as well, which is really important, and this comes up a lot in our chiropractic clinic, is people who have disc problems or spinal issues. So what we learned at school was that 90% of our discs that sit between our vertebrae and acts like a cushion to withstand compressive forces, 90% of those are made up of water.
Mm.
And they have really poor blood supply. So the main thing that they require from a nutritional perspective is water. And so if you're dehydrated, think about it. If you're not hydrating effectively and the cells in your body aren't filled with enough fluid in them, those cells start to shrink. And if you have those disc cells in your spine starting to shrink because they don't have enough water in them, they go from being a nice voluminous plump disc that can absorb pressure. So think about a balloon that's well blown up and putting pressure on top of it, and it can withstand that pressure, versus a balloon that's near empty, and then you're pushing down on that, and how much further you can press your hand down to the point where you could almost touch the floor through your hand, your top hand. That's what happens to discs essentially on a not so gross level, but what they start to do is they start to dehydrate. And what we see in MRIs
Or X-rays,
and in cadaver patients as well, is that those discs dry out and they become really brittle. And when they become brittle and dry, you don't have the suspension, and then you start to get injuries with the disc where
pain,
where the actual fluid of the discs then can start to leave through the walls of the disc because the walls have become so dry and brittle, particularly under pressure or strain or compressive forces. So I always tell all my disc patients, particularly, and really stress and harp on about this, is that the first thing they can do in terms of their management of themselves is to actually start drinking water. And go over the top. And the pain levels start to decrease when they start to do that. So that's a hugely valuable one as well.
Yeah, lovely. Cool.
I was just going to also quickly talk about my experience with water personally. I always had the feeling that I had a really dry mouth and that I could never really quench my thirst for most of my life. And then upon going to a seminar of the technique that I use to help people with water, and our chiropractors in the clinic there as well that do TBM, I actually had the circuits of water reinstated where my body started to absorb and utilize and metabolize water effectively. And then I noticed over those next few weeks and months that thirst that had always been there and plagued me most of my life had started to dissolve and dissipate. Mm. And I felt like I was starting to hydrate effectively for the first time that I could remember in my adult life anyway. And so, and I found that, numerous times with many patients who we actually get their bodies to start hydrating, get them doing the right thing and drinking enough water.
Yeah.
And the right water.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Is there anything else you think we
I think for covered? Water, that's it. It's just so the things that Andrew said that are really important, I think now is the intake of water that is 1 liter for 23 kilos of body weight.
Yep. Or 43.5.
No, don't make
that's
things
probably easy.
difficult.
Yeah.
1 liter for 23 kilos of body weight. So the way that you calculated that, you divide your body weight for, you divide, how do you do that? 53 divided by 23. So you get your body weight divided by 23, and then you know how many liters you need to drink a day. The other thing that Andrew mentioned that was interesting was putting an alarm clock or having a cue.
Having some sort of cue for your new good habit of drinking water. A cue
for your new good habit. So it could be something like every time I sit on my desk, I drink two glasses. I drink 500 mils of water. Or every time I get in my car and I drive to work, I drink 1.5 liters of water. So or for me, it's the before lunch. Just before I sit down for lunch, I drink 1 liter of water a few minutes earlier, and same with breakfast, and that works really well. And then the importance of drinking water, he mentioned 3 systems. One was the cardiovascular, that was new information for me, but makes a lot of sense. So if you want to prevent high blood pressure, if you want to prevent heart diseases, drink enough water, the liter per 23 kilos of body weight. The other one, he talked about the digestive system, that if you don't drink enough water, you don't flush out the toxins, they start to look for water somewhere else, and that's inside of your body. And the last one, he talked about our joints and our discs on the spine, which is, if you think about it, that our nervous, so all our patients know that, because that's something that we talk about a lot in our clinic. Our nervous system, so the computer command of our body, pass through the spine. So the spine is the suit of armor of our nervous system, so of our body. If the spine is dehydrated and the joints of the spine are dry and brittle, and you start to have some sort of pain on that joint, that will affect your nervous system. So it's important for you to think about that, and drinking more water will definitely help.
Yeah.
And yes, and the adjustments that Dr. Andrew, Dr. Kitty, and Dr. Zoe do on our clinic, they all help with your absorption of water and your body to take a move towards hydration. It's regulating your system towards that.
Yeah, so if we haven't seen you for a while, or if we have recently, come in and see one of us at the clinic. And I hope you've all gained a lot of information out of this and taken a few tips from it. And we'll see you shortly again for another topic.
Well, that's something that we always open to any sort of topics that you guys have. So if you guys are keen to send us ideas, you can send via email or leave it down in the comments. Or if you want to write it right now, something, we're happy to read. And we can address that, because we kind of try to think about ideas, and we always like between one and another, and then we take too long to do lives again. And you guys like it, so let us know what you need to know, what you would like to know.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining, and hope you're all having a great Monday, and see you soon.
Yeah, public holiday. Go and get some sun, some vitamin D. All right, peraí, I'm going to stop here.
The recording has stopped.
Yes. And bye, guys.
See ya.
And here, finished. Share to ID. Calma. Ah, still going.